This is the Nielsen Norman Group UX podcast. I'm Therese Fessenden. The words product design and UX design have almost become synonymous with each other in this era of digital design. But these two disciplines aren't actually the same, and if anything, thinking only in a product-centric way is likely to lead to designs that feel disjointed, isolated, and falling a bit short of expectations. So, to unpack this and figure out a new approach to design, I had our journey management expert, Kim Salazar-Flaherty, back on the show to share her recent findings on product-centric design, why it is still kind of necessary, but how it can coexist with journey-centric design, which is truly crucial for human-centered outcomes. With that, here's Kim. Kim, welcome back to our show. I'm excited to have you back again to talk a little bit more about journey management. But for those of you who are new to this podcast, listening here, I'm sure you're like, what the heck is journey management? So Kim, could you share just a quick overview of it for those who didn't listen last time, and then maybe a little about what you've been studying since we last chatted?
Sure. So before I introduce the definition of journey management, I want to kind of start with this concept of journey-centric design. They're very interrelated. So journey-centric design is kind of a philosophy. You've probably heard people say like product-centric design. It's really the same concept. All of our design operations and focus is, rather than focusing on the product, we're focusing on that longitudinal experience. So it's a philosophy, it's a framework that brings together both business operations and design operations centered around customer journeys as the unit of focus. So it emphasizes putting customer journeys at the center of your operations. So now, in terms of journey management, that is more of the ongoing process. After you've built your operations to center around journeys, then you're ready to start practicing journey management, where you can do kind of the typical UX practice, that ongoing research, ongoing measurement, optimization, incremental improvements, and even orchestrating the customer journey to improve experience, and also improve and optimize for better business outcomes.
Journey management sounds like it's something that's really intentional, with lots and lots of considerations. You're thinking about not just one customer journey, right? Not just the steps someone takes in order to complete a particular task, but like maybe the top 10 tasks that someone is doing. And we're thinking about all of these journeys and how are they structured? How do we string them all together into this cohesive, like you're saying, longitudinal, long-term experience? I guess I'm curious because you mentioned product-centric and this concept of product-centric design. As you've been researching these product teams, what have you learned about it? Like, what is there good stuff about product-centric design? Are there bad things? I'm very curious about that.
Sure. So I've been researching this because my focus in my research has been longitudinal experience design. And when I teach this in our training courses, everybody, is very positive and they understand the guidelines, the best practices. They get it. They know how to conduct the research and ideate and find solutions. The challenge that people run into is that the way they are positioned in the organization and structured, they don't have the influence within their company to actually make any substantial improvement to the journey from a comprehensive design standpoint. They may be able to kind of tweak things here and there. And that reason is because traditionally, we've been built as a product-centric practice. Like over time, as UX has evolved, companies were situated in silos where we had separate departments and functional groups, marketing, support, business, product, everybody's working independently. And that made sense early on at the time. As we've evolved into this like digital landscape now, companies invested in their product teams and really building those interaction channels, their digital ecosystem if you will. And that has been great. It's gotten us up to this point where we have these really robust digital ecosystems where customers can move across and use different channels and devices to achieve their goals. But what it has introduced at this point in the evolution is now customers are moving across these channels and products really quickly. They're really immersed in their experiences. And so the fact that they were all designed separately and in different silos by different people over time has created this situation where that longitudinal, the ongoing experience that they have from the beginnings of researching a product to purchasing and onboarding and setting up and using, that experience is really disjointed in a lot of situations because it was built from a product-centric standpoint. So product-centric design is valuable. It still needs to continue happening. What I found is that organizations have identified these pain points and they're starting to implement and invest in ways to connect across these silos so that they can be more proactive in designing the journeys. Because a lot of times, we're journey mapping, we're researching journeys, but we're not equipped to work around journeys. And that's kind of like the next frontier, if you will, to figure out how are we going to be proactively operationalized so that we can do, more impactful, more comprehensive design innovation and improvement that brings value to the bottom line, reduces operational costs, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate what you said there about reactivity versus like proactivity. Like I've seen this a lot as well in some of the courses that I'm teaching. Naturally, it comes up in like the journey mapping class because, of course, usually when you're creating a journey map, it's because, there's like some thing that got flagged, right? It's like, we know this is bad, and therefore we're going to map this out and fix it. And I think that's a typical approach. I mean, not to say that that's bad. I think it's good to like flag issues and to improve them. But where things kind of stagnate as an organization is where we're constantly just looking for where things are broken instead of just thinking a bit more like, if we were to forecast things that someone would eventually do or how these tasks come together or when people transition from one task to another. Yeah.
We're, to kind of add to what you're saying, Therese, I think everybody can relate to these sorts of experiences where like, why is it built like this? It doesn't go together and the information is not consistent and it's not easy to move from one step to the next. That is what we're starting to realize is that product-centric design, it was great because we built these really well-functioning, well-designed products and all the research that went into them was valid, but that we weren't thinking about how consumers are going to be moving through them and across them to achieve goals over time. So that's where we're at. We're at this tipping point in a way where it's starting to be more clear and we're trying to solve the problems of tomorrow on the structure and infrastructure of the past. So we know, okay, we have this longitudinal thing. It's cutting across these different segments and functional groups. We need to start thinking about how are we going to meet the industry and the landscape there and start designing for that experience rather than continuing to still kind of wear blinders and not be considering how that experience fits with the larger experience around it.
Yeah, it sounds like there's two components to this. There's like the method of it, the strategy of it, but then there's also like the mindset of it and just being mindful of like the larger context in which you have your individual journeys, right? And it's funny because like in some senses we've gone from like just interaction design to, okay, we're thinking of the interaction in the context of journeys. Well, now it's like, okay, now we are thinking of each journey in the context of something even bigger than that. And that can be really challenging. Like every shift that we do to think a bit more contextually is really challenging. So I guess with that in mind, what does journey-centric design look like? If we have these silos in this more product-centric style of work, and I know you've been doing a report, which we'll talk about a little bit later, so I'm certainly not going to ask you to explain the entire report here, but yeah, like, are there certain things that journey-centric design has, like certain components that product-centric design doesn't have?
The product-centric design approach has created this problem space that we've been talking about, that we feel as designers and that our customers feel. So the solution is operational and strategic in nature. It's a way to say, okay, how do we create a more overarching design strategy? We have these separate product design strategies, which is contributing to the fragmentation that exists. So journey-centric design says we're going to go up a level and say, what are the various journeys that exist in the life cycle? And kind of map those out so we see what is the scope of this. And often teams that are starting this, they pick a small piece of that to pilot and start to build their operational framework for how they can do journey-centric design. And what it is they're bringing together cross-functional stakeholders, because that's been the challenge. We haven't been working together. What they do is connect business stakeholders and contributors, and the business contributors bring the knowledge and the business strategy. How viable are these ideas and improvements we want to make? It brings together tech counterparts from potential other functional groups. They bring the feasibility aspect and insight into the equation, and then it brings the design practitioners, the UX people, the product people together. And they, of course, bring the insights, the user research, and the user-centered design specialty. So together, these contributors, they form what is typically called a journey team. And the journey team is a formal structure that is situated within the company. These people continue to report to their separate functional groups, but as a supplemental part of their roles, they are expected to come together and participate in journey-centric design efforts. The designers, the product people, they're really leading it. They're immersed in this full time, but they have access to the business and tech stakeholders throughout the design process. And so they can work together to create a vision and a design strategy that encompasses the whole journey. And by doing that, that design strategy sets the stage for how the contributing products, the products that play a role in that journey, and their product teams, what their design strategy is. So I like to think about it as, introducing another layer. If product is kind of down here at the ground level, focusing on individual interactions, journeys is a layer above that, where we're building a new strategy layer that will inform what happens below it on product. So product is essentially sort of plugged in to a comprehensive design strategy. And that's one of the values of this. The product team is also kind of still operating on their product-centric goals and the things that are specific to their product as well. So it creates more of a connected network, a network of people that are connected across functional groups that are coming together. And we've got that overarching strategy that holds people accountable to designing toward that strategy.
Yeah, so it sounds like you basically have these two design strategies kind of operating in parallel, right? Where you still have, we're certainly not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, like forget product-centric. Like you're saying, it has a place. It helps us to move through some tangible outcomes and objectives toward a specific product, toward a specific built design solution. So we still have that. We still have teams that are focused on those efforts. But in a way, it's like, I'm almost thinking it's like a federation. You've got like these representatives that are coming together to work on these journey level problems and to come up with solutions. It's kind of like, I don't know, this is where my military experience is showing, unfortunately, but the word task force is the one that immediately pops into my brain, right? This is a task force of people who are assembled with their own respective different levels of expertise they're all doing things. And like you're saying, it is a formal structure, right? It's not just, hey, we're going to come together to do this fun pet project. It's something that is recognized by the company as, hey, this is an actual initiative that we're having you come together to work. We're not necessarily reorganizing the whole company, but we're having you work in these recognized structures, perhaps doing rituals or stand-ups or, maybe it's sprints with these groups.
I see this as a new paradigm, the evolution of user-centered design. We've built the functionality in the base of this, and now we need to optimize and improve the ecosystem that we've built. So Journeys is a very logical unit of change that we can make because they're end to end, they're measurable, they have defined business value when people complete these journeys. So the challenge has been out there that people have been feeling for a while is this fragmentation, and it seems a little bit daunting and overwhelming to think, well, we can't do a reorg, we can't break down these silos, but what we can do is just change a little bit about how we work and just create connectivity and collaboration so that we're getting the perspectives we need together, and we're just working in a more connected way. Each of these contributors, the business contributors, the tech contributors, they're still going to be primarily reporting into their same functional groups and, carrying on business as usual. But a portion of their role is to be an advisor and part of these design projects.
Yeah. And I think that's a really refreshing way to look at it. I feel like there's so many just people on LinkedIn who will come up with new ways of working all the time for the sake of saying it's a new way of working. And not to say that they don't all have their merits, but sometimes there are these suggestions that just are more idealized or more theoretical than they are practical, or, even if they are radically helpful, it just is asking a lot of companies to radically change the way that they're working. So I think it's a really healthy way to look at journey-centric design in this way as a technique that we can use, not to completely change what we're doing, as far as who we're reporting to or how our work is organized and who prioritizes, but instead using it as an opportunity to collaborate a little bit more effectively. It allows companies to shift gears a little bit more quickly than a reorg would do. So that's, I think, a healthy way to approach this sort of organizational change, because organizational change is really hard.
Yes. And that's actually a good point that I would love to speak a little bit more too. So these, platitude, theoretical transformations that we hear of, you've heard of digital transformation, where companies are investing in their digital space. And a lot of that investment, it's coming from the same perspective as we have to invest here so that we can improve the customer relationship in this digital world. You may have also heard of CX transformation. Also coming from a similar space, we've got to invest in really kind of focusing our operations around how customers interact with us rather than how we have traditionally operated. Journey-centric design and journey management is coming from the same place in terms of theory and the problem that it's trying to solve. The reason, we have given it a new name and we talk about it separately from those two is because I feel that those transformational buzzwords are not very useful in describing how this can happen within product and within digital and design. What companies that take on these transformations, they are, companies with leadership that is already bought in and decided to invest, and it's a big transformation. That's not practical for most organizations. And designers and product people, they come to me and say, how do we get there? How do we get there? It's hard for us to build buy-in. From my research, what I found is that there can be a groundswell to create change from within product and from within design. But there's not a lot of vocabulary and prescriptive advice on how to do that. So that's really where my research has been. And we talk about journey-centric design specifically rather than transformation, because we're focusing the change in the digital product and design space. And it gives people a concept, a mental model, a structure, a framework for how we can scale what we're already doing and kind of bring the business and tech along with us. This conversation all wrapped around and centered around, the challenges that we all know exist in our experience and in the way we work. Mm-hmm. And it's not so scary. It's not so big. It doesn't seem so unapproachable. It really is something you can scale into. Mm-hmm. All the organizations I have been researching with, they all start with a pilot project where they, use that to explore, all right, for our company, how would it make sense to structure these journey teams? And what's the first most important journey that we can focus on? And even what's the subset of that journey that we think is the most opportunity lies? And they'll use that to kind of create their operational framework and do a test and see if they can learn, iterate, bring business value. And then over time, as they see maturity in that first test group and stakeholders and business parties start to see the revenue and the return on the benefit, that's another benefit for business. When they kind of see this first effort, this first pilot project, it's a light bulb moment, because I think it brings them closer to the things that they need to see to know that design brings value. That's one of the biggest benefits of doing this is decision makers, leaders, executives, they're very removed from any design work. And often designers are having a hard time communicating what their value is, what return on investment is. When we situate and focus the design strategy around a journey and try to optimize the journey to bring more conversions, reduce costs, increase customer satisfaction, those things are more clear and salient to an executive to say, oh, I am seeing this journey perform better due to these operations and these investments. And where else can we start to do this? Can we scale toward another journey team and start to, do this at scale and grow over time and bring more business units into this?
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate what you said too about the return on investment piece and really thinking of the business value as well. It's not just about, hey, we're doing this because we know our customers need it and deep down we know it's the right thing to do. Sure, I think that's a noble reason to do these things, but at the end of the day, we have to pay our bills and our managers also care that the effort that we put into this pays off, right? That we're putting our efforts into things that ultimately help us to stay afloat as an organization. And so I think the fact that this is a lot more business driven than maybe some other more ideological strategies, right? And I think that also helps us to get, like you're saying, to get buy-in. And this is where I think, at least when I talk to other designers and researchers, there's often this collective frustration, I gotta translate this into money terms and I have to talk to the people with the money. And it's true, a lot of our work is like this, but it doesn't have to be this politicking effort. It's not something that we just do to get what we want, but it also helps us to make sense of our own projects and where our time is the most valuable so that we're not constantly doing busy work. So I think just having this more practical way of looking at the things that we're doing and tying it to some larger, higher level business strategy, it also helps us remember our importance too, and the significance of the work that we're doing and what ultimately customers are able to do. So it's not just this, business transformation thing that makes us feel good about, rubbing elbows with important people, but it's more about how do we make sure that the time we're spending is valuable. And I think that's something a lot of people can get behind. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like you said, UX, we know there's a need for us to be able to tie our efforts to business outcomes. That's always been a frustration and a difficult thing to communicate. And that's always been a frustration for leadership too, is that it feels like a sunk cost because it's not something that we can directly, immediately see the return on. I think that this journey-centric design type of work and bringing it up the level to that journey level, it starts to solve a lot of those concerns and challenges. Because think about it, in the past, product-centric to all these years, we could make a lot of improvements that did correlate to business value early on. But now, when we're at this place where all the products are functioning and they're well designed, our micro optimizations in these little product moments don't bring the same impact that they used to do. And so the journey, it's new frontier. This is untapped space that hasn't been proactively analyzed and optimized. So there's a lot of opportunity to make and show that big impact at this higher level. And it's closer. If you think about that kind of hierarchy where the product layer is on the bottom and now this new journey layer is in the middle, at the top is the business and the strategic layer. So it brings us closer to that, and it brings the stakeholders closer to being able to create impact as well. If they want to roll out a new initiative, in the past, that might be a long, sort of fragmented, piecemeal effort. Now, stakeholders with journey-centric design, they're really influencing, the priorities for the quarter for a journey, and they say, I want this new program. It can be looked at that journey level, comprehensively designed in a way that thinks about all the products involved. And then with that vision and design strategy in place, the work gets parsed out across the supporting product teams that play that role to build it. So there's more efficient and effective implementation of large programs and solutions and innovative solutions. And it's going to give those top-level executive stakeholders a sense that they are now part of the process.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, like innovative solutions too, like I imagine that particularly with things like AI, where things are constantly moving, the needle's constantly, moving, the bar for success is constantly moving. So strategies like changing really fast all the time. And maybe in the past we had more of like, to use a development kind of term, right? We had more of a waterfall approach where it's like, okay, we have strategy and then this team does this team, and it all kind of trickles down slowly. But by the time it gets to the actual implementation, the strategy's already starting to change, right? Because it took so many layers and getting through so many silos to finally make changes happen. Yeah.
This creates coordination in a way that we can say, all right, how are we going to build this? And we have connections across the product teams to the journey layer. So there's a system and structure for pushing the right change down. It gets built faster and better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. That's really exciting. So I guess you mentioned there's lots of tangible takeaways. So I take it that's something we can find in this new report that you've just published, which, by the way, congratulations. I know it was a lot of work to put this report out. So yeah, can you tease a little bit what people can find in this report if they're interested in starting to implement this sort of way of working?
Absolutely. So this has been a labor of love. I really wanted to bring something to our audience that was practical and that had specific guidance. Because I think anybody who's been looking into this space, there's a lot of theory and a lot of kind of sweeping recommendations, but there's not much of a like, well, how do I get there? What is the prescriptive stuff? Where's the blueprint? So that was my intention with this research. I've been, studying this indirectly for 5 or 6 years, but specifically to create this report, I was looking for and creating relationships with organizations that are doing this work, truly doing it, like are investing in the operations. They've made structural changes. They have processes in place. And I was able to get a look under the hood with these companies. So we spent about 6 months in a series of interviews, working through iterations of case studies. The report is going to feature 2 specific case studies. They are Jumbo Supermarkets. It's the second largest supermarket chain in the Netherlands. And also PostNL, which is a private logistics package delivery organization in the Netherlands as well. I actually collected more case studies. I did these same deep case studies with 2 different financial organizations, one more focused in banking, another one more focused in insurance. We weren't able to publish those specific case studies because, as you can understand, red tape and people get a little nervous about sharing their internal, secrets and strategies. But the insight that I gathered from all of these was analyzed, and I pulled together some frameworks and processes and step-by-step approaches that teams, design, product, digital areas can start to use to look into the nuts and bolts. They already get the idea, but where do I start? What's the first thing I should do? How do I prioritize which journeys we're going to begin on? How do I build a journey team? How does that journey team work? How do we, create a journey strategy and then facilitate individual product team strategies that are connected? And what does that process look like? So this report, it starts with that blueprint, the steps, the frameworks. It's meant to, scale and be applicable to organizations of all sizes and industries. And then after that analysis, we have the 2 in-depth case studies from PostNL and Jumbo Supermarkets, which show different flavors of these approaches and in very detailed ways. So I'm very thankful. I want to thank PostNL and Jumbo for allowing us to publish these. I think our audience is going to find so much value from the depth of insight and prescriptive practical guidance.
I agree. And also I wanted to take a moment to recognize how hard it is, like you're saying, to get some of these because, and we see the same with doing our service design research, for example, finding people who are willing to divulge the secrets. I don't want to say the secret sauce, but when you talk about things like internal ways of working, right?
Yeah.
A lot of organizations can be a bit wary about what's out there and they don't necessarily want to reveal their competitive advantages. And so to find some folks who not only are willing to share with us, but also willing to publish is a lot of work. So I wanted to recognize your effort on that, as well as saying thank you to those folks who contributed to the report and are willing to share it. But it's stuff like this that really helps the whole industry improve the way that we work and to improve the relative maturity, to use the UX maturity model, right? But improve basically how well it is we know ourselves, we know our industry, and therefore how well we work together. So I think what you've done here is awesome. And I'm excited that other people are able to see this. So, with that, what's the name of the report? Where can people find it?
It's called Architecting a Journey Management Practice, and then it's how leading organizations have transformed their design operations to work in a journey-centric way to maximize business value. That's a long interpretation of the subtitle, but you get the point. You can find it on nngroup.com. If you go to our website and go to our reports section, it will be available there. I'm really excited to get this out to the community because there's not a lot of, like I said, this type of guidance. There's companies, there's consulting groups that are doing work in this space, and there are organizations that are going through and building these operations and going through these transformation. It's all just gate kept within these consulting companies. So my goal was just like, let's get this available to UX teams in a way that speaks to UX people that want to scale up and make it affordable. And make it, something that people can get their hands on.
I'm really excited for this report as well. I think it's going to be really great to have this resource, like you're saying, available, not gate kept, and to have some of these tangible examples that people can now use to start making their own changes. I think it's going to do a lot for our industry. So anyway, Kim, I know you've been so busy not only making this report happen, but everything else that you do with NNG. So I just wanted to say thank you for being here today and chatting about this. I'm looking forward to the rest that's going to come of this. So if others want to see more of your ongoing research, where can you point them to?
They can go to nngroup.com. I will be coming out with a series of articles. So one has come out with the launch of the report, but I'm going to be building on that and just writing more free articles about this. Of course, there'll be YouTube videos as well. And if you follow our newsletter, you should see those coming through over the next few months.
Awesome. All right. Well, Kim, thanks so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
That was Kim Flaherty. You can find her most recent report, Architecting Your Journey Management Practice, available for purchase on our website, where you can also find thousands of free articles and videos on journey management and other UX topics. You can find all of that at www.nngroup.com. That's nngroup.com. On that note, if you like our show, please leave a rating and subscribe or follow on the podcast platform you prefer. This show was hosted by me, Therese Fessenden, and produced by Chrissy Richardson. That's it for today's show. Until next time, remember, keep it simple.